Well, I saw we're taking pictures. I can go ahead and introduce our esteemed panel. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. This is a very important topic we're going to address right now. Okay. That very important topic that has never been more relevant in our modern times. Let's move to our next session, where we have a panel that's discussing advancing and supporting human rights through the lens of the law. For this, we are engaging in this discussion with Duana Boswell-Loechel, who is the CEO and owner of Boswell Law Firm, who will be our moderator. We have Samuel J. Vincent, Development Counsel and Chief U.S. Legal of Ex-Ilio Renewables Group. We have Joyce Lynne Lacey, Director of the June Lynne Lacey Foundation. We have Pamela Hernandez, who's the Principal and CEO of Epiphany Nurse Consultants. Chiquita Hall Jackson is the founder and managing attorney of Hall Jackson & Associates and Blow the Whistle Law. And we also have Gregory Williams, who is a youth motivational public speaker at Greg The Speaker LLC, and Mary J. Jones, CEO of AGORA Community Services Corporation. Let's have a big round of applause for our panelists.
Thank you. So it's my distinct pleasure to be moderating this panel of very, very impressive individuals. We had a chance to meet earlier, and each one of them is just a pioneer in this area. And, you know, the job that we're going to have today is trying to keep within our time of this very broad topic. You know, I looked up a definition of human rights, and it's a huge definition. It's basically anything that affects your life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, anything that affects you as a human. We all have those rights. So we'll just kind of go down the line here and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I will start since you're looking at me. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mary Jones. I am the Executive Director of AGORA Community Services, and it's truly community because we believe that everyone has a right for housing, but to be able to live peaceably and in financial situations where they can actually keep it. So we're going to talk about that.
Good afternoon. I'm Joyce Lacey. I'm founder and also director of the June Lynne Lacey Foundation. We serve vulnerable adults and children, the elderly, disabled, and our veterans. We provide food and meals, groceries and necessities, toys for the children, holiday gifts, and then also we do scholarships for graduating seniors and accessible playground equipment for physically challenged. And so we've been fighting also for human rights continuously, daily, and I'll talk a little bit about that later too. Thank you.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. I'm Pam Hernandez. I'm the principal and owner of Epiphany Nurse Consultants. I'm a nurse, registered nurse for over, God, I don't even know how many years. I've been in healthcare over 30, and my primary role is as a legal nurse consultant, healthcare consultant, helping patients and attorneys and people that need healthcare and support and equity and justice within the healthcare system. I'm a big advocate for patients and adoptees and pretty much anybody who needs a voice that doesn't have one.
Good afternoon. I'm Chiquita Hall Jackson of Hall Jackson & Associates and Blow the Whistle Law, and I am an attorney who fights on behalf of workplace violence and workplace discrimination, and just trying to advocate for equitable workplace for everyone. I like to call it the unknown and the unforgotten human right.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gregory Williams, Greg The Speaker LLC. I'm a retired lieutenant in New Jersey State Police. Did 32 years. Prior to that, I served in the United States Navy. So I'm really glad to be here today.
And I'm Duana Boswell-Loechel, and I own Boswell Law Firm, and we are a divorce, probate, and estate planning firm. But my passion really is talking and educating on human trafficking, especially what occurs online. So we'll probably be talking about that a little bit. So the first question I have for everyone up here is, what are some barriers that you've identified in each of your areas that affect human rights? Mary, you want to start us?
Okay, since you're still looking at me, I believe one of them, there's many. There's one that says that if you need housing, how do you know that you're obtaining the housing that's within your capacity? Because if it's not in your capacity, you're not going to be able to keep it. Because you have to be able to ride out crisis. You have to be able to make sure that you're the one that's making the decisions for your family and no one else.
Some of the barriers that we've been running into is abusive, for-profit, fraudulent guardianships and conservatorships that some people might be very, you might be aware of, especially with what happened with Britney Spears. Believe it or not, they used the reason for putting her in that she had dementia. And they tend to use dementia a lot for people that don't even have dementia, and they don't have an opportunity to prove that they don't have dementia. And usually people are medically kidnapped or kidnapped from their homes, and it's usually motivated by they have a nice home, they have lots of money, they're elderly. And in order to be a professional guardian, all you need is 40 hours of training. That's 1 week. Most of the people in here have either Associate of Arts, Bachelor of Arts, Master of Arts. You think you'd need one of those, at least the Associate of Arts. But no, it's 40 hours. So you get people in those positions that they're not there for caring for the people, they're there, it's profit over people, and it's very sad. And we've been also helping to promote the movie Sound of Freedom, which has to do also with slavery, because it is slavery when you have these people in guardianships, involuntary guardianships. And basically it's slavery because they're put in there and they basically their identity is taken away. They're made into a number, put into a probate court, which is usually meant for property. So they're made into a piece of property, which is truly sad. And through the foundation, we helped make sure that it was released, the movie, so we helped finance it. And we also did help to pay it forward so that people that couldn't afford to go see it could go see it. There's 2 million children right now that are trafficked in slavery through this, sex trafficking, and it's so sad. And you'd think other countries, maybe Africa or Colombia, would be the worst. The worst is the United States, which is just hard to believe. So that's some of the obstacles that we run into, but we're trying to, stand firm, never give up, and keep fighting the good fight. And it's for these children and for vulnerable adults, children, elderly, disabled, and of course our veterans, because unfortunately they fought for our freedom and they go after them for their pensions and all their life savings. So that's what we are running into. So we're trying to fight for them.
Pamela?
So I saw, working on the business side of healthcare, that not only are we not always safe, but we're not equitable, we're not inclusive. There are people that are losing their homes, filing for bankruptcy, walking out of the hospitals after coming to the emergency room, being told that their bill after seeing a doctor might be $30,000. They may have stroke symptoms and say, I have to leave. I can't afford to stay here and get treated because I don't want to lose my home and I don't want to put my family in that position. I learned just enough on the business side to be dangerous, I like to say. I've seen attorneys work with patients that are veterans that can't get care that they need, patients that were operated on the wrong side, that lost the wrong limb, that developed bed sores in a hospital that should have never happened. All of these things to me are violations of rights. People need to be treated equally and should be afforded the same health care, and we know based on geography and demographics and income that that's not always the case. The World Health Organization recognizes that health care should be an inalienable right to all people, and the United States does not. And as one of the leading economic countries in the world and the place where everybody, at least they tell you that in the U.S., wants to come to, we are so far behind some of the other countries as far as equity in health care and taking care of our people. And the older that I got and the more that I saw, I got tired of being one of the few people in the room saying, well, what about the patient? You're creating an access to care. You're going to drive people out of their home. This test is too expensive. You're only offering it in a white, wealthy neighborhood. You're not looking at XYZ demographics of people or middle America. And, you can only do that for so long where you have to stand up and be a little louder. So I'm prepared to be a little loud.
Thank you. Chiquita?
I think that was excellent. What I believe is a barrier is one, like I said, this as an employment attorney, I feel like an equitable workplace and just fair treatment within the workplace is the forgotten civil rights, it's the forgotten human right. And with that, one of the biggest barriers is actually acknowledging that this is not how I should operate, this is not how I should feel and be treated just to make a check. I believe that's the biggest barrier. Once people realize that I can have a nice lifestyle and I can also have sanity and have mental health and physical health, not being stressed and diabetes and high blood pressure just to sustain a living and a check. So I think that's the biggest barrier. The second one I would say is having people see something, say something. You know, a lot of people play along and get along. Like my colleague was saying here, she actually spoke up a few times, but it's a lot of people who would just, it's not me, I'm gonna put my head down, I'm gonna get my check and go home. And when it's time to serve for those investigations, internal investigation, external investigations, you have so many people that refuse to participate, even if they did witness it, even if they was the one back there rubbing your back and giving you the tissue when they saw you break down and cry. I don't want no parts of this. Who's gonna take care of my family if they retaliate against both of us? So that's one of the next, and I think the biggest barrier outside of identifying that you deserve better in the workplace is people realizing that they also can disrupt the culture so all of us can have a better workplace if you guys participate and speak up. So again, see something, say something, speak up.
Right, yes, and I just want to add to that discrimination. You know, we talked about it on day one here, and discriminating and just a lack of knowledge. Just citizens having a lack of knowledge and understanding of what their rights are.
Thank you. So in my arena, I really concentrate on the access that traffickers have to our children. The average age for the first contact that a trafficker has with somebody is 11 years old, and they're doing it online now. And the biggest barrier to that is there's really no regulation. And as we see more and more students going to school online, or you know, parents use it as a babysitter, and they're not really monitoring what's going on online. And it's just opening the door for trafficking, starting very young ages. And I think until we get some regulations or some ability to be able to see what's going on, it's just going to get worse. So next, COVID has had a big effect on many areas. And I know in the trafficking arena, the fact that all of our kids are going online is really opened the door for these traffickers to have access to them, as well as opening the door for them to send the victims worldwide to service the Johns, and they're even being able to be paid online. So COVID has really, really expanded the online marketing for trafficking. How has COVID affected the areas that you guys are each experts in? Why don't we start with Greg down there?
Yes, well, COVID, it really caused a delay, and it caused elimination of programs that law enforcement worked with the youth at different schools. It shut down the schools, education. So that was a big problem, a cause of delaying learning for citizens of the communities. So I think that COVID really had an effect on the community outreach that police departments are doing and were doing until COVID came and they had to stop. And now, they need to get back into it, but are they getting back into it? It's not necessarily number one on the list, truth be told, but it should be. It should be one of the top on the list. And now that things are back to normal somewhat, they should get back into that community outreach and engagement.
Chiquita?
On my end, I see it as the issue. One more time, I do apologize. I have my answer ready. Could you repeat the question? I do apologize.
How has COVID affected the human rights in the employment world?
Thank you. I have seen COVID affect the human rights as far as an employer seeing the human as a dollar, which they have always seen. You know, you are a company, I bring you in, you are capital, you are the workers, and you are the people that's going to drive this company, so we need you here. But people, the discrimination inflated, I shall say, because you had the idea of now every protected class. I don't care if it's religious reasons why you can't come back. I don't care if it is a health condition where you cannot get vaccinated. It was so many people terminated or forced to retire because they had no choice. If their physician advised against the idea of a vaccination, the employer didn't care. You either going to agree to get the vaccination, or you're going to resign, or we're going to force you, you know, as far as termination. And so it's just the humanity of taking these people's careers and dedication that they didn't gave you for years. I need you back, and I don't need you in a virtual space. I need you physically here, and pretty much this is the ultimatum. So that's how I've seen it being affected.
Thank you. Pamela?
I think we saw during COVID, especially on the healthcare side, that it was not as effective, efficient, integrated, equitable as we thought it was. I think the alternating advice that came out from some of our leaders was not only ineffective, but the antithesis of good healthcare. And I felt, in fact, COVID was the reason why after 10 years on the business side, I went back to the bedside. As a nurse and somebody who spent a large portion of my career taking care of patients and people, it was very hard for me to sit and watch some of the information, and I'll call it misinformation because it was what it was, that came out. This was a novel virus, yes. We didn't know exactly what to do with it, but there were some really brilliant people on the front lines identifying what to do and how to care for people the best way that we could. There were people who walked away from COVID that I saw personally that should not have. And on the flip side of that, there were people that I saw that passed away because they fell to the misinformation. And so not every treatment is effective for every person. It has to be catered. That's why you need to have a good provider and somebody within your healthcare realm that understands your needs. And it just, for me, was heartbreaking to see, and that's why I went back into the bedside and clinical practice. And the further we got through COVID and the more I saw and the more people I saw that walked away from the hospital with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt, it broke my heart, and I realized exactly how unequal and inequitable our system is.
Thank you for that. Joyce?
COVID was actually devastating for vulnerable adults and children, the elderly, disabled, and our veterans. Basically, I'm sure you all heard the story about the person, and now this happened all the time, but this one story made national news. It was a gentleman that was a paraplegic, and he had a family, 4 children and a wife, but he had gotten COVID, and they decided because, well, the doctors decided, based on bias, because they didn't think his quality of life was worth it, so they took him out of the ICU and put him into hospice, and he was gone in a week. And this happened quite a bit. Not all the stories made national news, but that one did. And as you know, and most of you do know, that they were putting COVID patients in nursing homes. Now, mind you, even a 5-year-old that, grandma and grandpa are in the nursing home, and, they can't go and see grandma and grandpa, but they're putting the sick people in there. And now we're going to grandma and grandpa's funeral. So even a 5-year-old can figure out that that was really wrong. And I know they did that a great deal in New York, California, and Minnesota, and other states also. But they had devastating losses, like 23,000 in nursing homes in one state. And that's a huge human rights violation. We all have inalienable rights, and that should never be taken away from anyone. So it was devastating, truly devastating.
Thank you. Mary?
Well, COVID, I believe, it's a crisis. The fact is there were crises before that. So how I believe it impacted is the same way it impacted the prior crisis, is that we went into it without any understanding of what we were doing concerning sending everybody home, saying they have to stay at home for a year, with no guidance, no understanding of, let's say, family, work, what's the plan with How are we going to deal with the children? They're home with us, but we have to work. All of this was kind of dumped, just like every other crisis. So we had 3 crises. It was 2008, then it was 2010, and then we had COVID. So, not 2010, 2008, forgive me. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. There was a housing crisis, an economic and housing crisis right before COVID hit. So we were still in that. People had not recovered for that. So I believe the impact is that we have to look closer at what the crisis is, how the crisis is going to affect we the people. And that's everybody. And what can we do to help them through the crisis? So there's things we could have done. There are a lot of our youths that were left because they didn't understand, I'm going to school and John, he got a home to go to tonight, but I'm going to be sleeping in my car with my family. Why? So there was no education or understanding at the level for the children or the young adults or the youth that would help them understand what's going on. We kind of forgot them. Sending everybody home through COVID was devastating because no one knew what to do. Period. And it really didn't have a lot to do about COVID by itself. It was just generally, we can't leave home. So when you know you can't leave home, what is it that you're supposed to do? So what they wound up doing was a lot of nothing or things that caused them to be in even worse shape.
Thank you all. So we're coming up on our last few minutes, so let's go around one more time and just give some parting words or some solutions that you think might be helpful to put out there.
All right, well, not ladies first, okay, but I'm the only gentleman up here, so I'll go first. But some of the things that, just summing up, outreach and engagement, law enforcement, community outreach and engagement, that was a specialty of mine, and I just think that we should get back on that, and that law enforcement agencies should get back into that, and educating the citizens, educating them, making them aware of their rights, because a lot of these communities are not aware of the rights that they have. So I think that that is something that we definitely need to get back into now that things are back to normal.
My parting words is that being in an equitable workplace, and it doesn't just mean for those who are marginalized, that's considered African American or brown community. You have age, you have disability. So there's an array of protected classes, and so keep that in mind. And so it shouldn't just be a privilege that I have a nice boss. It's not a privilege that I'm in a work culture that fosters and feeds me and drives me to be best and perform and bring my authentic self to work. It's a right, and it is a human right, and you have a right to be in an equitable workplace, a free workplace of, just mistreatment. And so keep that in mind. It's not a privilege. Of course, we can go on and brag and highlight our employers, our lovely supervisors and managers that's, helping me, advancing me, promotional opportunities. That is a human right. If I've been sitting in this space and I have trained those who you keep hiring over me, and I'm actually doing their work because they're I'm not gonna say incompetent, they don't have the skills to do it, I have a right to be promoted just as the next person. So keep in mind, it's not a privilege to be in a nice work environment. And it's not a privilege to be in an environment where it's free of workplace bullying. It's a human right, and you have a right to have that. Thank you.
Pamela?
I'm a pretty proactive and not necessarily reactive person, and I've been saying this for years, and I really feel like it's finally getting heard. The problem in our healthcare system is that we don't have a healthcare system. We have an insurance system. We have an insurance system where executives make $50 million bonuses in the middle of a pandemic. We have hospitals that are not getting reimbursed for services at a rate that they should. We have providers that are not accountable when they perform medical malpractice. We need to be accountable for our actions, but we also need to understand that it's about the better community. And if we're going to have $9 billion in fraud, waste, and abuse investigated on the back end, why can't we utilize technology and things to stop it on the front end? Why can't we put caps on executive salaries, make insurance available to everybody? and I'm not talking about a government-run universal health care system. We can have a multi-level system that is inclusive of everybody, that is still capitalism, that is still done with private insurance, and still have regulations in place that equity is true among everybody, and that everybody makes a living and is capable of surviving under that model. And the other countries have done it, and we just can't seem to get it together to do it. So I'm going to continue to speak out, and hopefully that one day, before the end of my life, I will see it.
Thank you. Joyce?
Well, we have tried for 4 years to get a bill passed in Minnesota to protect the rights of these people that are put into guardianships, especially abusive, for-profit, fraudulent guardianships and conservatorships. We have not been able to pass it. A simple bill, just basically giving them human rights, because there is so much money on the other side of the aisle and lobbyists that are promoting just the opposite, saying that, oh, they don't need this, they don't need this. And I'm just shocked that a human rights bill that should be a no-brainer hasn't been able to pass in 4 years. So I'm trying to educate the public and hopefully get more people speaking out, because this is a national issue too, and we totally need to get together and pray, most of all, because of, I don't know that, most of us, we can speak out, but like I said, we've tried for 4 years and nothing's happening. And we really need to join together and try to do something that's going to make a big difference and get some rights for these people. We all have inalienable rights. And they use the color of law, basically, to take away the rights of these people. They're taking their property, their money, everything that they've ever owned and worked for is gone, like in a day, and they don't even know. And they're not given the opportunity to defend themselves. They just basically come in and take them and put them in a nursing home. Or, for example, if you can watch the movie The
Actually,
Guardians.
Joyce, I'm going to kind of cut you off so we make sure that we get
Oh, sure,
Mary
I'll
some
hurry
time.
up.
I'm sorry.
There's
If
just-
anybody's interested in learning more, make sure you hunt up Joyce after we're
Right.
done.
There's just some really good movies you might want to see. The Guardians, it was filmed here. It's on YouTube right now. And so it tells a whole story, and it's really important to know what's going on. And if you get a chance to see The Sound of Freedom, please do. Thank you so very much.
Well, I believe that what you touched on is that it hasn't happened, right? So we must talk. We are the people. We the people. We're the people. So we should be talking amongst ourselves. If you're standing in a long line in a grocery store, share something interesting. Share something that you learned here. Share something that you heard somewhere that is going to help someone. They're a captive audience because you're standing in a line. So we have to become united in any way that we can. We may not have a lot of followers in Facebook or whatever, but if we just talk, that is the fastest way to get things united in such a way so that things can happen. And that's really what's missing. We the people are not one. We're blocks and separated, and we don't even come out of our front door and wave hello to a neighbor. We go in our garage, come back in the house, go back out the garage. You don't even know who lives next door. So why? Because we're all in this circle. But when you moved into that home community, you invested in that community. When you got that job, you invested time into that building, into everyone in your company, wherever you go through, you became part of it. So we need to talk, we the people.
Agreed. Also, in addition to talking and just making sure you know those that are around you, educate yourself. Educate yourself on what's going on in your community. Pay attention to what's going on with your children, what they're doing online, who they're talking to. A lot of it just comes back to not paying attention to what our children are exposed to. And allowing them to be on social media unmonitored is a huge danger zone, because traffickers will troll social media sites looking for children, saying how dissatisfied they are with their parents, with their life, that they just don't want to go on. And the traffickers will reach out to them and become their friend, become their trusted confidant, replace the parents in their lives in that trust category. And next thing you know, they're meeting up with them and now they are in the trafficking industry. And they're entering, like I said, at 11 years old is the average. And that's for boys and girls. And it's not just sexual trafficking. We also have labor trafficking that's going on. And that happens a lot with families. So it's not even strangers that we usually think of that are trafficking, children and individuals. It's family members and people that they know. So just educating yourself and knowing that it is going on in each of your communities. It's not something that's happening over there. I'm from Houston, and we're the #1 city for trafficking in the United States. Not something that we should be proud of. Definitely not. But it's educating the public that it is something that is right there, and knowing what your children are doing and what they're exposed to. And if you want to learn more about some tools that are out there, there's ways to monitor what they're doing online without being invasive to them and destroying trust that they would have with you. So it looks like we have just a little over a minute if we have any questions.
Yes, to the mic.
Usually we have a microphone right there, but I don't see one.
So we just want to.
I knew I came to this panel for a reason, because the issue of human trafficking hits home to my family, my extended family. One of my family members, she was human trafficked by her biological father, and she was just 6. So it breaks my heart to see the hotbeds and the points where this happens. More startling statistics than what you just shared, the average entry point being 11. It's the #1 crime that superseded drugs, because the average shelf life of these trafficked people is 7 years, and they get retired, killed, or died just from exhaustion at 21. So my question to you, because I made my message like Robin Roberts would say, I found that the hotbeds for human trafficked people are the free and charitable clinics, because the pimps and handlers will obviously not pay for health care. Another hotbed is hotels. What would you, the panel, say would be a unique solve, or how we should, I know you said the talking in the grocery lines, that's incredible, having just one conversation. That should be a podcast, really. Just one conversation can change a life. But what would you say would be a solve to this if they are going into free charitable clinics and hotels? How could you help people that might be on the front lines that can identify trafficked people?
So I can say one thing that I know that's going on there are some projects going forward that are in the mass tort arena, where they are going after the hotels, they are going after social media sites, and they're trying to send a message that it's not okay to just look the other way, that you need to actively do things to prevent this. And when we start hitting these big companies in the pocketbook, I think they're going to start listening, and that's the way that we can start really making some change.
Can I add to that? She actually hit the nail on the head. There's 2 ways to get to any company: money and legal repercussions, always. It doesn't matter what company it is. You hold them accountable legally, mass tort, criminal action, however the powers that be, and you hit their pocketbook. If we had, imagine a world where we had wraparound services that facilitated family therapy when needed, that helped single mothers where they didn't have latchkey children at home, that were subjected to the internet, and I say that because a 6-year-old who has to babysit themselves on an internet is subjected to something that they shouldn't be a part of. So imagine if we had community services or wraparound services that provided the type of needs to fill the space, the void that these traffickers are stepping into. And until those things are in place and we understand that the humanity of our future and our children really do depend on this, that if we can't hold people accountable legally and financially, it's going to continue. So we have to be vocal and we have to step up. There's just no other way.
Can I just add one thing too? Basically, I think you need to also remember that be very careful with your children, because some of these people will pose as talent scouts or modeling scouts, and they'll get your child a loan where they can take pictures and everything. They'll tell the parents, oh, you can leave and come back at a certain time. They come back and the children are not there and they're gone. Mm-hmm. So you really need to stick right by there. I mean, don't leave completely. Do not trust these people is basically what I'm saying. Some can be trusted, but you never know. So just be very vigilant. Thank you.
And thank you. Clearly, we're out of time. Like I said, this is a huge topic, and we could probably go on for a very long time. So if you have any questions, just come last.